Good morning, sir, and our dear audience. Thank you, sir, for joining us for such an important topic China Pakistan debt dynamics and its implications on India. Dear China enthusiasts, welcome back again to another episode of C3S interview. I am Komal Pooja, research intern in C3S, pursuing my master's in international studies from Christ Deemed to be University, Bangalore. Our distinguished guest for today is Brigadier Rahul K. Bhosle. He is an Indian Army military veteran with 30 years active field experience in counter-militancy and terrorism operations. Post-retirement since 2006, he has combined his military expertise with extensive study of strengths in conflict to build a personal repertoire of workshops, seminars, books, magazines, and newspaper articles which are internationally acknowledged. He is presently Director of Stasia SecurityRisk.com, a South Asian security risk and knowledge management consultancy which specializes in future scenarios, military capacity building, and conflict trends in South Asia. Before we commence, a brief introduction to the topic. The economic relationship between China and Pakistan is characterized by a significant debt burden borne by Pakistan. China has become Pakistan's largest creditor, financing a significant portion of the China Pakistan economic corridor, estimated US $62 billion cost. CPEC, which serves as the centerpiece of China's Belt and Road Initiative in Pakistan, promises significant infrastructure development. While this debt offers much needed investments,
हाँ,
concerns loom regarding its
उसको
sustainability
11:30 बजे चाय देना है।
potential
इधर ही
consequences.
ना 11:30 बजे
According to the World Bank,
ठीक
Pakistan
है
also tops the list of
ऐसे छोड़ के आ
countries
जाओ
indebted to China with US dollars 26.6 billion. From 2012, Pakistan has received at least one emergency loan from China annually, which, according to China, accounts for 13% of Pakistan's total foreign debt. We will now dwell into factors contributing to Pakistan's mounting debt, the potential for a debt trap, and the broader implications for India's strategic interest in the region. The analysis will shed light on how the situation might influence regional stability, economic development, and the geopolitical competition between China and India. So, moving on to our first question, sir, I like to ask you by beginning, how can India help stabilize South Asia amidst China-Pakistan relations and Pakistan's lack of cooperation while aiming to revamp START into a successful regional organization like ASEAN?
Yes, good morning and thank you very much for inviting me for this prestigious interview. I'm really grateful to the Chennai Center of Strategic China Studies as well as to you personally because you're taking a lot of pains to frame the questions. And also for the introduction which you have given, I'm thankful to you. Let me begin by our discussion by indicating the state of geopolitical and regional flux that is existing today as far as our South Asian region is concerned and beyond. As our External Affairs Minister, he indicated just a few days back during the forum in Nikkei Asia Forum, we are in a geopolitical order is in a state of flux. There are multiple cracks which are happening and fault lines which are evident today. And these fault lines are even evident in our sphere in South Asia, despite so many the factors of stability which are indicating in our region. In fact, today I would feel that compared to other regional complexes, South Asian regional complex may be relatively stable, except for conflicts such as happening in Myanmar. But you see other parts of the world, Europe, Middle East, even South China Sea areas, North Korea, all these areas instability, comparatively, I think South Asia is in a favorable situation. Which brings us to your question, if we are in a favorable situation, then I think we should be doing far better than what we are doing now. That is activating SARC, activating our regional, bilateral and other cooperation linkages. Of course, there are multiple reasons for which the South Asian region has got the challenges, particularly in the economic and the development sphere, and these can be overcome by multilateral cooperation on in organizations such as SARC. The challenge, as far as the SARC is concerned, it remains primarily that of the Pakistan's constant support to cross-border terrorism in India. As you know, even in the last few weeks, there have been continued terrorist attacks in Jammu and Kashmir, which have been traced back to groups which have been supported by Pakistan. So the SARC holdout essentially is, as indicated by India, related to Pakistan's support to terrorism in India, and the other members of SARC have also supported it. We are trying our best to activate the SARC, but until Pakistan gives up its policy of supporting cross-border terrorism, activating of SARC will become is not likely. As you know, last month, or rather 2 weeks back, we have the SARC Secretary General who visited India, and during his visit, there are talks or discussions were held on how to activate this regional cooperation, and India has given some positive proposals. Now we are expecting that Pakistan is having a new government which came out in February. India will be having a new government in the month of June. So we hope that some positive development takes place in this direction. Now, as far as China and SARC is concerned, China cannot be the full-fledged member of this grouping because this is a South Asian grouping and China is not part of South Asia. China's relations with Pakistan per se may not hamper the activation of SARC. SARC can continue despite the strong China and Pakistan relations, because after all, it's a multilateral organization. One or two states' relations will not make a difference. Essentially, the basic factor which is preventing this SARC to go ahead is Pakistan's support to terrorism. Whether Pakistan commits itself to preventing cross-border terrorism into India, and is also we are able to get certain degree of confidence, that will be the activation of SARC. Having said that, let me tell you that Pakistan is now desperately needing the trade relations with the SARC members. You are already aware of the economic situation in Pakistan, and for overcoming this economic situation, SARC is one very good outlet, particularly trade relations with India. Today, trade with India goes through the United Arab Emirate or Dubai and these areas. So it's going to taking place through that. Direct trade can take place, but for that, Pakistan will have to give up its stand and approach to terrorism. And we will also hope that China does not act any hindrance in this respect. In fact, China is also keen that the terrorism within Pakistan be stopped. It may not be as keen as cross-border terrorism in India. As you know, China has also been a victim of Pakistan terrorism within Pakistan. It lost 6 of its engineers in the terrorist attacks in the month of March. So I think this whole situation is reflecting on the presence and export of terrorism, and we hope that some good sense prevails on Pakistan and the SARC gets activated. Thank you. Okay, please, you have to unmute yourself. Yeah, unmute yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Considering the obstacles like political instability and corruption that are affecting the CPEC and PRA initiatives, as well as the risk of project failures and China's current financial difficulties, could there be a situation in which China decides to stop providing financial support to Pakistan?
Yes, you see, there are a number of aspects are involved in this. Firstly, one must understand that the China-Pakistan relations is of a strategic nature. So it is not just the China-Pakistan economic corridor, but China has very larger strategic and in fact geostrategic interests as far as relations with Pakistan are concerned. Why I am saying this is that you see the United States China competition and confrontation is one of the most important geopolitical factors in the world today, apart from the wars which are happening. In this context, United States is expanding the strategic partnerships across Indo-Pacific or Asia-Pacific. Japan, Korea, Australia, Thailand are allies of the United States. India, ASEAN countries, we are the strategic partners of the United States. Even Pakistan is a non-NATO ally, which a member with NATO, which US is a membership. Under this scenario, China is relatively isolated. Who are the big friends of China? Myanmar, maybe, possibly some members of the ASEAN, Afghanistan, and of course, Pakistan. So China requires Pakistan because Pakistan is one of the, out of its partners, Pakistan is the most prominent partner per se. Given this requirement of China to have strategic partners and friends in the region, Pakistan holds a special place. And to that extent, I think any situation arising for China-Pakistan divisions to develop is likely to be very limited because China requires Pakistan more than possibly Pakistan requires China. Pakistan has very good relations with many other countries, including the United States. And Pakistan requires the assistance of the United States if it wants the IMF and World Bank assistance, where the US has a majority share. So, in that context, you find that Pakistan is going to develop the relationship with US in parallel with China, and China would like to undercut the same. Now, how will China undercut the same? By providing continuous assistance, debt assistance to it. Now, coming back to your question, can this be stopped? As far as China's economic difficulties are concerned, I think these are very marginal in nature as far as Pakistan is concerned. China has got, I think, about 3.4 trillion forex reserves. There are huge forex reserves. Out of these forex reserves, it has to provide Pakistan at the most 4, 5, 10 billion US dollars, which are not very much difficult for it. But something which is very going to be cause a drastic downturn in China-Pakistan relations is the continued terrorist attacks on Chinese personnel operating in the CPEC corridor. We have seen the terrorist attack happening in March, and this has given a big shock to the Chinese, and they have given a clear warning to Pakistan that the terrorist attacks have to be stopped on the Chinese personnel. Now, in case Pakistan, of course, has given an assurance that these attacks will be stopped and all measures will be taken. Even the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Mr. Shahbaz Sharif, has personally given an assurance. But terrorism is something which is not completely under control and under Pakistan's control. It is being carried out, these attacks are being carried out by groups which are operating in Afghanistan. For example, the Tehreek Taliban Pakistan, given full shelter by the Afghans, Taliban. Islamic State of Khorasan in Pakistan, Khorasan province, again a group which operates independently. So I think if the terrorist attacks in Pakistan on Chinese assets they increase, definitely the Chinese will have a rethink. But as from the economic point of view, China can well afford to provide Pakistan all the assistance that is required by it, and it will continue to do so because of what I have called as a strategic requirement for China of Pakistan as a partner to approach the Indian Ocean region and also to undercut India's influence globally as well as within the South Asian and the Asian region at large. Pakistan is acting as a proxy. So proxy has to be supported. That is my answer to your question.
That's a very comprehensive explanation, sir. So moving on to next question. China had shifted its focus and operations from Badar port to Karachi port despite having a lease for multiple years. Given its strategic importance as proximity to the Strait of Hormuz, this is unlikely for China. What do you think of this move, sir?
Yes, you see, this is, I think, in a way, a very major setback as far as CPEC is concerned. Gwadar, they were trying to promote Gwadar as a major port, as an alternative to Karachi, where China had full control over the operations as far as Gwadar is concerned. But that has not worked out. Gwadar does not have the hinterland. Any port requires a huge hinterland infrastructure, economic development surrounding it. It requires warehouses, it requires trading points, it requires industry. That is simply not existing as far as Gwadar is concerned. The second issue is of Gwadar is the challenge faced by Chinese engineers, as we covered in the previous question, where the Chinese engineers, personnel operating on the CPEC projects, they are facing a major challenge of security. So, under these circumstances, it has become very important for China to have an alternative, and Karachi is an alternative which is available as far as Pakistan port operations are concerned. Mind you, Karachi and is also an important naval base, and the Pakistan is having extensive cooperation in the naval field with China. They are going to get the submarines, they are going to get the frigates. So, given this overall dynamics, shifting from Gwadar to Karachi is going to benefit Pakistan and China to carry out their operations, commercial as well as the naval operations is concerned. Definitely, this is going to be a challenge as far as India is concerned from the point of view of the large Chinese naval presence that may come up here. Commercial operations, if they increase, you know, the Chinese and Pakistan commercial operations, they also have the angle of maritime crime, smuggling, drugs, even nuclear material smuggling is happening through this chain or the supply chain network. So that is definitely going to increase the disruptive activities and disruptive, I would say, economic activities and the naval presence of China in Pakistan's Karachi port will definitely have to be kept under watch by India and observation. And we will have to take various preventive and countermeasures towards the same.
So, sir, as we were talking about the Karachi port, Afghanistan is also relies on this port for their trade, including narcotics and drugs. And with the Taliban's presence, how it will be the security implications for India?
Yes, you see, the Afghan Taliban is relying mainly on the Karachi port, and now they are trying to expand onto the Chabahar port in Iran, which India has, as you know, just signed a 10-year agreement for operation of the Chabahar port. So Afghanistan is of course hostage by to Pakistan for carrying out all the commercial activities through the Karachi port, and some amount of drugs and other smuggling will also be undertaken. At the same time, you see the main drug flow from Afghanistan goes to Iran and Central Asia as well. And the Taliban claims, though, and some of the international agencies are also supporting this claim, that the cultivation of poppy and the production of opium and so on has been curbed in Afghanistan. It's a long process, but definitely the possibility of this exporting from Afghanistan through Karachi increases. Nevertheless, you should also bear in mind large quantum of drugs are coming from Pakistan to India across our western border, land borders. Use of drones is something which has become very frequent. Many drones have been sighted by our border security force, and these drones are used for smuggling of drugs. Other means are also used for smuggling of drugs, both across land as well as the sea borders from Afghanistan to Pakistan and on to India. So we have to take measures to contain it by expanding our Coast Guard network, expanding our maritime security zones, and also on the land border.
Yes, sir. As we're talking about security measures, despite such a heavy debt, Pakistan continues to spend significantly on defense. Its 2023 defense budget was 8.5 billion US dollars, and it has been in talks with China about adding numbers to the JF-17, buying more J-10C, and also indicating a desire to acquire the first generation J-31 fighter. How do you look about this, sir?
Yes, that's a very important question which you have posed, because one would imagine that a country like Pakistan, which is having a debt of US dollar 131 billion, that is the magnitude of the debt. Almost 90% of the GDP is debt of Pakistan. And it is going repeatedly to the International Monetary Fund. Despite the grave situation, as we know, it faces multiple disasters. Unemployment is growing in Pakistan. People are having a food crisis is happening there. Despite all this, the focus on defense and expenditure on defense has not reduced. And I would say it is not likely to reduce, primarily because the main institution which is very dominant in Pakistan is the Pakistan Army. And the Pakistan Army, it projects threats from India, threats from Afghanistan, threats from the sea, and others to seek more and more money from the government in the for the defense budget. And we do not see any hope that Pakistan is going to reduce the defense budget despite some very stringent conditions which have been posed by the International Monetary Fund. But somehow or the other, they are able to hoodwink their way or bypass the way and get additional money onto the defense budget. Now, apart from the formal defense budget, there are informal or there are budget is also pumped in the defense field from the different channels like infrastructure, the atomic energy, and so on. So it's a huge expenditure they are doing, which is in normal course not affordable. But the Pakistan being the structure of their state, they are continuing with this, which I think is unlikely to stop in the near future. The second aspect is Pakistan turning towards the Chinese fighter aircraft, submarines, frigates. Now, these are not technologically as developed, but they are relatively cheap. So it can afford more number of these fighter aircraft from the Chinese as compared to that, let's say it has to pay to any Western country like the United States, Europe, or European countries. So it has that advantage in terms of cost. Now, how effective these weapons are, we are not very sure. But India cannot let down its guard. Today, as we say, the China-Pakistan is a collusive threat, means they are both going to act as a one single front against India, Pakistan in the west, and China in the north. And since they have got same types of weapons, same brand of weapons, interoperability is going to be very easy. Let me give a simple example. If you have an iPhone and I have got an Android phone like Samsung, interoperability between these two, though easy, there are some challenges. But let's say you have Samsung and I also have Samsung. We are going to be easily able to communicate. Similarly, if China has got JF-17, JF-10, JF-31, same aircraft is there with the Pakistan, interoperability increases, and we have to then be additionally careful. So I think our government, which takes office in June, will have to carefully look at it and how much budget it is to be allotted for defense. India has always prioritized development versus defense. But given the situation which is arising, there may be a case for additional investment in defense, additional acquisitions, and so on, so that we can reinforce our deterrence.
Thank you, sir. That also explains how we should focus on our military deterrence position. So my next question is on. So Muktas Nagri, chairman of the Karakoram National Movement, said that Pakistan is likely to lease out Gilgit-Baltistan in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir to China to pay off its growing debt. Since it's a clear threat to India's sovereignty, how do you see this, sir?
Well, you see, it's not that first time Pakistan is giving part of Pakistan occupied Kashmir to China. They have already given the Shaksam Valley, which is a very critical area north of the Siachen Glacier and also close to the Karakoram Pass. So it may not be something which cannot happen, but it is going to be very difficult for China to or for Pakistan to secede or give the Gilgit-Baltistan area to China wholly. There will be multiple challenges, particularly in the geopolitical sphere. Shaksam Valley is not a major portion of the Gilgit-Baltistan, but Gilgit-Baltistan is a huge area, huge tract, and which is actually part of India. So, which is occupied by Pakistan. So, there will be geopolitical challenges, and it will not be acceptable even to the United States that such a large portion is been given away by Pakistan to China, which is actually Indian territory. India will, of course, never accept it. And then the people of Gilgit-Baltistan are also not likely to accept. Because you see, they have the live example of what is happening in the Chinese province, which is where the Uyghurs are being so ill-treated and put under so many restrictions that the salient example of Xinjiang is very clear to these people of Gilgit-Baltistan. It is likely that they will also raise massive protests and raise multiple challenges will occur if China tries to occupy the Pakistan occupied Kashmir, Gilgit-Baltistan portion. Of course, there will be also protests within Pakistan, I anticipate, because after all, no government in Pakistan can afford to give such a major chunk of what they called as Kashmir, which is Indian territory, to China. So there are multiple challenges in giving the whole chunk of Pakistan occupied Kashmir, that is Gilgit-Baltistan, to China. And I think it's going to be a very difficult for Pakistan to do that. But we have to keep our eyes open and see how the developments take place in this sphere.
As you previously mentioned about US strategic priority to Pakistan, US is also concerned about the growing debt Pakistan owes to China. How can India take a strategic advantage over this?
You see, as far as India is concerned, our focus has always been on the China's countering China's debt diplomacy. And we have advised all states in the region, and many are actually adhering to our thing. Nepal has not had any BRI project. They have, they have offered to have 7 projects, but not a single one has been, signed with China. So I think as far as growing debt of Pakistan, we have to influence the United States that, as you know, as I said earlier also, United States has got a major stake in the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. So India has to highlight to the United States that what tranche is being given to Pakistan by the IMF and the World Bank, some of the tranche is going for resolving this debt issue with China. Though the IMF has laid down the condition that this portion of the budget should not be used to offset the Chinese debt. But the Pakistans are cleverly doing it in a roundabout way. So I think we have to impress upon the United States that any grants, loan, and assistance which has been given by international institutions such as the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, for instance, it has to be ensured that this has a clause where debt of China or any other country cannot be offset by it. Similarly, there are many other countries like the European Union. They have got various programs to assist Pakistan in the trade sphere. And so, in that situation as well, we have to convey to our partners there that the GSP Plus program, they call, which gives concessional trade and tariff benefits to Pakistan, this cannot be given that major portion of their debt or the support of the which is there is going to offset the debts by Pakistan. So we have to impress upon the Pakistan's other lenders. Pakistan, out of the total debt of I think 31 billion, it has got a lot of debts not only from China but other international donors. India has to impress upon the international donors, take your own debt back and not allow the money which you are giving goes to Pakistan paying off the Chinese debt. That is the type of strategy we have to adopt.
Thank you, sir. That brings us to our interview's conclusion. So you have covered upon a broad spectrum of regional stability, economic development, geopolitical competition, military spending, and how India's stand should be. So and you have given a lot of insights and seeds for our brain. Thank you for agreeing to be part of this interview, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.